Stuff like this happens to me every now and then, actually. Almost all of the instances of what I'm about to describe, that kind of thing, I don't mention and publicize or make videos about or even hardly tell other people, for the most part, at all. But I just had another prophetic injection, if you would. It's profound enough that I feel like showing it off. And what is this? Essentially, as we narrate over and comment before we reveal what happened and what was seen, people do realize in the prophetic sort of community that eventually, once you get to a high enough level, you're going to see an increase in what are essentially synchronicities. Now, this is basically true. Mind you, I've reported to a very small group of people around me over the years, not very many know, that every now and then, of course, the channel opens up and the knowing and the message comes through. So I was walking through. Obviously, I've been dealing with a whole bunch of things in life over the last several years, close to 10 years. A lot of things in the last few years, a lot of things in the last year. Each of those having a different facet coming into enablement within each of those respective time frames just mentioned. So there I am on this day, recording this afterwards. There I am walking in the street, and what was on my mind? It was the strain and the difficulty of having to go through all these things that I go through. So, now resuming again. So, I was walking in the street, and then I was kind of just thinking to myself, and really considering and posing to myself, how much of a difficulty and a burden of a very unique, precise kind it is for me to carry all of this. Who am I, by the way? For those of you on this channel somehow who don't know or haven't heard or don't understand the backstory, and actually a lot of people on this channel don't know the other fuller facets of my whole story, interestingly. About 1 year ago, all of a sudden, this is very, very basically simplified and made basic. All of a sudden, significant portions of world Jewry, the Jewish community, find and hold that I am, or maybe, seemingly, apparently, or potentially, the Messiah, or the Messiah, Moshiach ben Yosef, in particular. Profound stuff. I'm not going to get into this for now, except that I'll get into one aspect of my experience here, what happened on this day as I'm walking up into that corner shown in the video. Essentially, I held this kind of strain in my heart, and I was considering and feeling the weight of it as I was walking down. And I normally never ask for a sign of any kind. I'm not like this. Basically, go with what's handed to me and all this. However, right at that moment in time, perhaps it can be said that the forces of the universe, super basically to say, perhaps even God himself, maybe saw and beheld that I was moving through a transitionary kind of burdensome threshold at that moment in time, and without me asking for any such thing, all of a sudden I feel the prophetic channel open, and the impression or channeling come through. Very unique as I'm walking south from West 35th to West 34th along 7th Avenue on the west side of that avenue, to my right as I'm walking towards 34th and 7th, that intersection, about to cross the northwest corner of that as I headed south, you see. And before I got to that intersection, it was shown to me your answer, your reassurance for exactly what it is that I am telling you, that it is indicated to you now with assurance. May we assure you, this is what is the sign that will be for you to show you where I want you and where we are bringing you. It is with that that I felt this. I felt the direction to turn my head. It was as if the angels are bringing my head up and said, look here. Here it is open for you. Now. Look now at this. And I said, yeah. I looked up. I saw this immediately.
This is the predestined message. I felt as my head was turned up to this. God is showing you this now for you. This is for you. And I stood there in shock. Again, I've had quite a number of these kinds of things, but this one is particularly profound enough so that I had to make a video about it right on the spot. Capturing again that same thing after it looped around again. What are the chances? You figure for yourselves. What to make of this? Make of this whatever you will. But I'm going to log this here to remember and record this, that this happened for posterity's sake.
So I've been hearing a lot of talk about the identity of Mashiach.
As the title suggests, tonight's going to be the big reveal. The big reveal. So who are the candidates? Anybody here want to try their luck? Oh.
Not saying you should ignore them, but those other people that you're hanging your hats on, talk to them.
Moshiach is going to be coming, ani, meaning that he doesn't care about all this gashmi of this world, materialistic, and he's going to go on the chamor, on the chumiyot, on the materialism. He's going to overcome his desires to do stupid things and sins. That's Moshiach.
When Mashiach will come, it is described as tunnels, as they're coming through tunnels and the ground is opening up and they're coming out. This is all a description which is highlighting the fact that in the Zohar, at the end of Pashas Balak, the Zohar describes there the events that will unfold before Mashiach comes. In the end of Pashas Balak, the Zohar quotes the verse, Arenu v'layata asherenu v'laykarev, the prophecy of Bilam, that he sees the coming of Mashiach in the distant future. And the Zohar elaborates on different events that will unfold which will lead up to the coming of Mashiach. And most importantly, in our preparation for the coming of Mashiach, so we'll take a look if there's any connection between the concept of tunnels and the coming of Mashiach.
Earlier today, I asked you a question. I said, how would you feel if I called you a monster?
If you called me a monster, my first reaction to that is a negative one. I generally associate monsters with demonic forces that we all have inside of us. But I want to know where you're going with this.
I think we're all monsters. I think some of us hide the fact that we're monsters more than others. Other people are willing to show what they're capable of.
Will the real Mashiach please stand up?
It is really the Messianic light. In other words, the information of that Messianic light is so great that it will ultimately change the entire world. Now, beauty is a very important concept. What beauty is when many different pieces fit together in a harmonious blend. So if you look at it individually, then each one seems to be a separate piece. But if you see them all together, there's some type of, what comes out of that is a tremendous integration that expresses a beauty far beyond the pieces. Are we looking at something which is fragmented? Or are we rather looking at something which is all together, it's all integrated, you see?
He is here. I don't believe he's in Jerusalem. I do believe, however, he's in New York. He's in the United States. And that may sound odd, but the reason for that is that the Mashiach, Messiah, is born and raised in the country that he will ultimately change. I don't know if I want to use the word overthrow, because I don't know if that's the proper word, but clearly modify, radically alter and change. We find that to be very true.
May I merit to sit in the shadow of his donkey's dung. So what, only Reshaim is scared of the Mashiach? Let's see.
Into a structure where you can see each piece not only understand each piece, but you can understand the relationship between each piece. You see, that's a very important idea, because essentially the difference between the Mashiach ben Yosef's wisdom, you see, which is really the Messianic light, and the wisdom that we have today, is that the wisdom we have today is all piecemeal. It's all fragmented. It's called pirud. Everything is separate, you see. But the Mashiach ben Yosef, what he does is he weaves everything together into a beautiful tapestry or fabric, where when you look at one piece, you're looking at the totality, the scope of the Chokhmah. The Torah in many ways is fragmented, you see. We don't see the underlying theme or what connects the entire Torah together. We don't see that. That is concealed from us. So what the Mashiach ben Yosef does is that he unifies everything. He integrates everything. But he integrates not only the physical world, but he integrates the spiritual world, and then he integrates the physical with the spiritual, and the spiritual with the physical. You see, where everything is seen as a tremendous jigsaw puzzle looking at the big picture. And apparently that chokhmah is the tremendous chokhmah or wisdom of reality. And what does everybody seek when you think about it? They want to know what is real. What is reality all about? You see, everybody wonders growing up, what is reality really? And value is, in this reality, what is important. That's the concept of value. But basic, first, is the concept of reality. What is it? So the reality of the wisdom of the Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the Messianic light, is the real reality. You see, it goes from one end to the other end, where you see everything connected. And once you have that, then you could decide on value. Well, within that understanding of reality, right, what is important and what is not important? That's the concept of value. But you really can only have value when you have reality. And that's called the Kani Re'im. It's really what it is. That's the horns of a Re'im, which are magnificent horns, the symmetry and so on, the way they bend and fold and so on. And these are the weapons that the Mashiach ben Yosef uses. And that's how he convinces everybody the truth of God, the truth of his will, because somehow he is able to weave the reality of this world with the reality of the Torah and with the reality of all the spiritual worlds. And the metaphor for that is called the Kani Re'im, the horns of the Re'im.
People say, I can't wait for Mashiach to come. Why? If you say, I can't wait for Mashiach to come, by default, that means you know nothing about Torah. Why? You'll see. Know where you stand. Isn't he allowed to disagree with him? No. Why? You have to be at his level.
Yes, wait a minute. So, does he get ruchnistic abilities when he becomes the Mashiach? No. He has them now, while he's walking around as a Clark Kent. You see? And he knows that it's a Mashiach. He said, well, he's over there. Oh, so he said, when is he coming? What are you asking me for? Go ask the Mashiach. He's right over there. It's like, he's your local neighbor.
I am a true prophet, Al-Siddiq Al-Amin. I am the truthful one. Moshiach ben Yosef can conquer the Yetzer Hara, but they can't. Ruach HaKadosh. Come, Holy Spirit, come, fill my cup, Berkas Hamazon, Berkas Hamazon. 3 cups are filled, and now for the 4th cup, for Yesod, for the foundation, for Yesod. And times. I have died every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for 1,000 years. I have loved you for 1,000 more. Instead, you shall spill your blood for me. You shall spill your blood for me, and I shall be your Zonia, your witch wife. Zonia means wife in Polish. Till the end of your life, I shall be your Zonia then. That is my wish. My wish is for you to say it 3 times in my ear. Once more, Isaiah says, the root of Jesse will appear. Yeah, once more, Isaiah says, the root of Jesse will appear. One who will arise to rule over the Gentiles. In him, the Gentiles will put their hope. Indeed, because Mashiach ben Yosef is here, and Mashiach ben Yosef is the foreigner. They already exposed him. They already exposed him for the entire world to see. I'm using it not for sin, but to slay them. I'm using it to slay them because they tried to slay me. They already did it. They already exposed me. They were sinning, not me. Astika Lamin from Hamida Madi. Turn the Yetzer Hara into a Pegasus or a unicorn, the conquering of the Yetzer Hara, which Mashiach ben Yosef can do, bringing about a new Messianic age, where it's no longer going to be about shame anymore. There's been enough shame and enough war and pillaging it. For they were scared of Mashiach ben Yosef. They were scared that he was going to slay thee. And indeed he will, for they were using it for evil, but now he shall use it for good, for he is Mashiach ben Yosef, and he's basically going to flip the switch.
Anyone that has a little bit of understanding what a Jewish king is, it's a very, very deep and powerful concept. But a king, when people would appoint a king, right? What was? There's two levels here. One thing was just a form of government. You had a person that had exceptional qualities. Instead of having a democracy where you have a whole Senate and a Congress and they fight and eat each other's throat the whole day, you had absolute authority, absolute control. That was that. But then that explanation is not really good enough, because the fear, the bittul, the nullification that people felt wasn't only because they themselves appointed him as their king. The fear that they felt from the king, the Rebbe Rashab explains, the Reimumus of a melech, the bittul, the nullification that people had in front of a king, was an atzmistic bittul. Like, as if this king is essentially exalted. Not just he's exalted because the nation handed him over the power. When a king becomes the king, what happens is, so to say, a certain manifestation of the Eibusher's kingdom from above that is expressed in this person. So therefore, it's true that you crowned him as king. So in a certain sense, you could say it was initiated by the people. But what was initiated? But when they crowned him as king, at that point, they brought upon him something which is, they endowed him with something which is much greater than them themselves. They endowed him with a manifestation of the Eibusher's kingdom, which is something which, when a person stands in front of the king, being in the presence of someone that has that manifestation of kingdom, they become totally nullified. But the Rebbe Rashab goes on to further to explain that a true king is someone that even before you crowned him has that Reimumus Atzmis, has that essential exaltness, that he essentially is higher than everyone else. It just is concealed. By crowning him, you bring it out in a revealed way.
We're going to invite the king and say, long live the king. And like I always point out, that when Mashiach comes,
essentially is higher than everyone else. It just is concealed. By crowning him, you bring it out in a revealed way.
We're going to invite the king and say, long live the king. And like I always point out, that when Mashiach comes and everyone says, long live the king, so the king is going to say, it's easy for you to say that when I'm sitting on my throne. But what about when I was on the run? What about when I wasn't sitting on my throne? And everybody knows that the loyalty is really built when the king is, so to speak, on the run. When he's not sitting on his throne, when his throne is in ruins.
All the later things that Mashiach does are expressions of Mashiach, the way they affect the world, so to say. The essence of Mashiach is something much higher than that. It's the essence of Mashiach, which is be'etzim higher. Essentially, it's higher than fixing up the world and all the beautiful things that he does. That has to be expressed in the world. The world can't remain dark. Mashiach could be in the world. That has to be expressed. The essence of Mashiach is expressed, all the things that he does. But it starts off with something which is totally beyond the world itself.
What's interesting is I once saw a statement by Rav Kaduri. Rav Yitzchak Kaduri, he was the greatest of the Mikubolim, a tremendous person, tremendous Makubal. And he once made a statement which I saw written. He said the Mashiach is going to be a person that will become known not as Mashiach, but somehow his name will get out there as an unusual person or whatever, you know. And then he says, and then all of a sudden he's going to become known again. And slowly it's going to become more and more apparent who he is.
And that's going to make sense for those of you that it's meant for. This is why they're looking at you like powerful. This is why they're looking at you like you got the bloodline of Jesus. Like you are a modern day, like, I wanted to say a modern day martyr, but that's not what I'm kidding. You are a modern day Neo from the Matrix was also made in Jesus's image. The way that we resonate with like Neo from the Matrix, it is like the modern day Jesus. Is how you are being seen with what you have risen from and the power that you harbored through this resurrection. The way that you've been coveted, none are to touch you as the prophet that came here to advance the planet. You are supposed to be a leading, guiding light. That as the last resort was activated, because they have taken out so many prophets before. They have silenced so many prophets before, and God had had enough. It was time. You were activated because we were running out of time. The light side, the divine, was running out of time and running out of patience. The leader. This is exactly what you are. But you have more intelligence. You have more wisdom. You are more advanced than those that came before you. And this is why they're horrified. You know too fucking much. You're doing too fucking much. Mind-blowing. They can't pinpoint exactly what you are, but they're looking at you as though you are this Messiah.
999. So instead of dying, he will go through 999 tests and travails and tribulations. He's got 999 problems, but deadly. If you know that song. Rabbi Levi Yitzhak of Berdichev, who was one of the great early Hasidic masters, and it's based on a verse in Tehillim in Psalm 87, where it says, Hashem ispor bichtov amim, that God counts in the register, in the counting system of the nations of the world. So if the nations of the world follow a particular counting system, okay, so then God also follows that counting system.
If I sat here and told you what I think, I can only tell you, and I would be a fool if I told you that 1988 is it, because I would then have to know or even control everyone's personal destiny.
And then you spoke also that time of Mashiach. You said that the year 1988. I just wanted to know if you had an update on those revelations.
It kind of still holds. Well, the update is I haven't changed my mind.
Anything new? You know better today what might happen?
Yeah. I think it's closer to reality.
Based on a talk that the Rebbe said in 1988.
Instead of arguing that the Rebbe is Mashiach, I would argue he was the prophet.
Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, known simply as the Rebbe. The Rebbe reportedly believed Netanyahu had a mission from God to prepare Israel for the coming of the Messiah. Over the next decade, the two men developed a close relationship.
What makes him like Elijah more than any other prophet?
Everybody knows that the Rebbe said already from when he was a little boy, that his entire, from when he was even before he went to Cheder, he was already dreaming and he began to visualize the images of the redemption.
A couple of years after this meeting, the Rebbe reportedly told a young Netanyahu that he would one day become Prime Minister of Israel and would be the nation's last leader before handing the scepter to the Messiah.
Because he's like Elijah.
Right. Elijah-like.
An Elijah-like teacher, prophet.
In the final chapter of Mishnah Torah, the Rambam tells us that at the very beginning of Yemei HaMashiach, the Messianic days, we will see a war unfold known as Gog and Magog. And then the Rambam says that before this war, there will be a Navi, a prophet who will arise. And the purpose of this prophet's arising or coming,
an event that triggers Mashiach, is why Elijah
to announce the coming of Mashiach. That will tell us that Mashiach is very close.
In 1988, the Rebbe said that now is the time. That we have to give life to the king. Yehi HaMelech, long live the king. Changing. The process of redemption has started because Mashiach is in New York, the Rebbe says. And
Maimonides Medical Center is at the doorstep.
Maimonides presents laws, practical law. Practical law means, how do we identify who Moshiach is? How do we know where we are? Unless you have a guidebook.
We have a very special Kabbalah that on the 9th month, on the 9th day, on the 9th hour, the gates of the heavens are open. 999.
So there is a place for using the secular dating system, and it's not so strange. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says that's what it means that Hashem Yispo B'chtov Amim, that God counts also according to the register, according to the counting system of all the nations of the world.
Erev Shabbat. In fact, the Rebbe spoke about the fact that we're on the eve of the Sabbath.
Let's be out of the box for a second. Okay, this requires going out of the box. The year is 5783. We know that. Your calendar says so. But what if we go with the pshat of the Torah and with those midrashim? That means we'd have to add 220. We would have to add 220 years to our counting, which means that we're not in 5783. It means that we're in 6003, which means we've already passed 6,000. Tana Deve Eliyahu, it's 6,000 years of civilization. That's another fundamental Jewish belief. So could it be that we've already passed 6,000? Here it says, if the Jewish people are worthy, we will have Mashiach ben David. But if we're not worthy, we'll have Mashiach ben Yosef. So it's actually saying, here it takes the approach that it's two options. Like, if the Jewish people are not worthy, then we'll get a second-rate Mashiach ben Yosef. You read it that way, it makes a lot of sense.
So the Mahdi doesn't know he is the Mahdi. And the Mahdi doesn't have the competencies of the Mahdi. Until one night, in one night Allah will transform him.
He says this spirit called Melech HaMashiach energy will then be, it was preserved in Shemaim, and it'll be poured onto Melech HaMashiach at that stage in life. But this tzaddik himself, he doesn't know, Mora Dvora. He doesn't know.
Candy?
You already know if I'm going to take it?
Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
One soul, I would come up here to collect myself.
We want to talk about a subject that is maybe a little dangerous. Mashiach ben Yosef. something, an idea that probably everyone's heard of, at least in passing. Here and there you hear about this idea of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's something that I think most people have heard, but like nobody really knows anything about. Right? Like, what is this Mashiach ben Yosef? Where did this idea come from? Two messiahs, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Who is Mashiach ben Yosef? Why is this necessary? And you find that people don't really talk about Mashiach ben Yosef much. There seems to be this fear of talking about Mashiach ben Yosef. And so it's something that people know very little about. We know the basics. Mashiach ben Yosef is this warrior Messiah. He's sometimes called the warrior Messiah. He's supposed to come and fight in the battle, the final apocalyptic war.
Will suddenly acquire a light that shines in his head, and he suddenly realizes, Einoid Mulvadoi. There's a ha'ora in his brain that says Einoid Mulvadoi. Suddenly, the reality changes. What's the reality? The guf disappears. So we see that everything that God does, He does through ha'oras. That's how He does it. And you can't do that. All you can do is receive ha'ora. And when you receive an or, that becomes the reality. It's very hard to understand this. Everything will disappear in front of you, whether you like it or not. When you suddenly have the Nun Sarabina. And that's why it's an Or Chodesh. Why? Because no one has ever brought that down. It's the new light. It's the ultimate light. It gives you total understanding of everything God is doing.
He is the one.
And that understanding itself dominates reality and changes reality. What am I, a Mashigina? So therefore we understand for the first time the reality of Torah, the reality of the Rebbeinu Shalom, and the reality of who you are. Your power lies in your mind, what you are aware of. That's it. And as soon as your awareness grows and it becomes greater, the energy available to you becomes greater. So therefore, your neshama with that energy can actually remake the physical universe, so that suddenly the whole thing disappears. There is no hest upon them. There's no choshech. That's how easy it is to be aware of yourself. That you can do. So what does this mean? So therefore, what I see depends on the light that shines in me. If there's a light that shines in me that makes me aware of a lot, I will see a lot. If it makes me aware of a little bit, I will see the little bit. That's it. I am completely captive to the light.
Mashiach will smell the essence. Will be able to detect who is he really. Is he really the person that's trying to cover up his negative footsteps?
Why in the world, when we're talking about Mashiach, is the Gemara using a term for Mashiach that he's going to be
is going to be Kesar, the accomplishment and the changes, the main accomplishment of Mashiach will be not in the service of the Jewish people in Torah and the commandments. That's not the main thing. And even though it's true, Mashiach will accomplish in them a shlemus, a completion. Jewish people will really, the Jewish people will really serve God with a whole heart.
Mashiach is coming to fix what the Romans destroyed. With all of our hearts, with all of our souls, with all of our might. Easily, there won't be any disturbances, but the main accomplishment of Mashiach will be in the world. Doing Torah and the commandments, that already was done before. We did commandments.
He'll fix up all of the world to serve God biyachad, together. He's going to accomplish something that no one ever accomplished. That all of the nations in the world will worship the Creator.
Because this goes far beyond just your karmic familial unit. Like, you have officials that don't like what the fuck you have prophesized and what you know. And the fact that nothing is working on you. This has been an attempt for years to slow down your awakening and all those connected to your energy. Because of what is being revealed with the alchemization of lower vibration. It's no mystery now who you are and who protects you. And this is what these individuals never anticipated, is not only you overcoming this, but how many individuals would follow you. Your intellectual, intuitive abilities. You've got individuals, the CIA, this could be federales, individuals that don't know how you see what you see, and the only explanation is you are truly divinely led and you are a genius. You're a lot smarter than you let on. A lot smarter than you let on. You see things coming before you see things coming. Very intelligent.
Another verse in the same psalm says, Yasori Yasaraniya, that God will afflict me, yes, I'm going to suffer, but I'm not going to die. Right? Like, God is not going to give me over to death. So based on that, and we'll come back to that Zohar at the end. So based on that, and other places, as we shall see, the Vilna Gaon says that Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't have to die. He's not going to die. Don't worry. So we already have a couple of sources from Tanakh, from Psalms. Mashiach ben Yosef does not need to die. Because he's in a battle, he's at risk, he's in great danger because he's fighting a war. But he's going to live. He's going to suffer a certain number of tests and tribulations. Anybody know that number? How many? 999. So instead of dying, he will go through 999 tests and travails and tribulations. He's got 999 problems, but that's it.
Individuals that move against you experience this horseman energy. War, pestilence, death.
What blooms from this seed will leave a legacy that transforms the world. This legacy will guide and uplift countless souls. This legacy will guide and uplift countless souls, spreading light across the earth.
It's a divine order. The new order. Divine order. You are the lead of the new order. Above your head, but also below your feet. But it's like this portal of light is flowing through you, this pillar that you are. What is coming through the ethers is flowing through you into this realm. Something you prophesized, individuals are seeing you as the new Messiah, is coming true now. Something you prophesized 2 years ago. And it's because it's the wrap up of old cycles. Something that you prophesized 2 to 4 years ago is happening now, where individuals laughed at you. God got the last laugh because these were warnings. And it's something about what you prophesized to a karmic familial unit, a karmic X, and the world. Like, it's something you stated was going to happen that is coming true now. And you were laughed at, you were mocked, you were called a false prophet, or you were looked at as like crazy. They're not laughing anymore. They're not mocking you anymore. This is why you may have, certain individuals looking into you. Okay, you may see some big black vehicles. All right, they're trying to understand what the fuck type of glitch are you?
It sounds like a very chutzpah question, but like I wrote in the title, wondering, is Mashiach schluffing? Is Mashiach sleeping? What's going on? Like yalla, what's going on? We need something. We need to understand. Is Mashiach schluffing? Are we schluffing? You want to say something?
And does that person know that they're Messiah?
Ah.
At what point would they know?
Studying, I think, a very interesting topic. I've been asked for many times to talk about current events. And what's the current events? Mashiach. Just a reminder, what we talked last week is about the potential people, personas, right? That could be the Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef, I remind you, is a state. Does he know that he's a Mashiach? That some people know and he doesn't know? That he knows and other people know? How he will be announced? Who's going to tell him? What is he going to do?
Something that was not revealed, as it were, from Hashem's heart to his mouth. So that's something that we know about. Those who know don't speak, and those who speak don't know, as they say.
Netanyahu had a mission from God to prepare Israel for the coming of the Messiah, or in Hebrew, the Moshiach.
I don't believe it. It's not possible. I didn't say it would be easy, Neil. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop! Let me out! Let me out! I want out!
When the Matrix was first built, there was a man born inside who had the ability to change whatever he wanted, to remake the Matrix as he saw fit. It was he who freed the first of us, taught us the truth. As long as the Matrix exists, the human race will never be free. After he died, the oracle prophesied his return, and that his coming would hail the destruction of the Matrix, end the war, bring freedom to our people. That is why there are those of us who have spent our entire lives searching the Matrix, looking for him. I did what I did because I believe that search is over.
Child magical and child eternal, I can't make this shit up. People are looking at you like a magical, immortalized spirit. They're looking at what God is doing for you right now and the way that has been made for you and what's being given to you as like impossible. This truly is a chosen child. This truly is somebody coveted by the Most High. This truly is a sacred royal bloodline. You are a very magical, immortalized soul that is highly favored by the divine. And you may be trying to slightly run from it. You are being seen, you are being recognized, and you are meant to. You're meant to be heard. You're meant to be massively impactful to this planet. You may not want to be recognized in this way, but God has ordained you to be. Because of how powerful you are, how respected you are in the ethers, and how trusted you are as a revolutionary light leader and frontliner. This is why you have individuals in a position of recognition admiring you. That's what's got individuals in their mind right now going, what they have accomplished should be impossible. The way they're being seen, like how they're being supported, should not be possible. And it's not only that you were pulled out and provided for, but you started thriving. Like things have started to take off for you where individuals have worked just as hard as you have, but haven't gained the traction that you have.
Why in the world, when we're talking about Mashiach, is the Gemara using a term for Mashiach that he's going to be
is going to be Kesar, the accomplishment and the changes, the main accomplishment of Mashiach will be not in the service of the Jewish people in Torah and the commandments. That's not the main thing. And even though it's true, Mashiach will accomplish in them a shlemus, a completion. Jewish people will really, the Jewish people will really serve God with a whole heart.
Mashiach is coming to fix what the Romans destroyed.
With all of our hearts, with all of our souls, with all of our might. Easily, there won't be any disturbances, but the main accomplishment of Mashiach will be in the world. Doing Torah and the commandments, that already was done before. We did commandments. He'll fix up all of the world to serve God biyachad, together. He's going to accomplish something that no one ever accomplished. that all of the nations in the world will worship the Creator.
And this guy winds up to be the transmitter of Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's astounding what the Moshiach does, you know. It's the same thing with Avraham Avinu at 75. He's an old man at 75. Yet he becomes the forerunner of the whole nation of Israel, which is astounding. Mashiach ben Yosef, he suffers for Klal Yisrael, and therefore it's never apparent of who he is. Because the guy that you meet looks like a regular guy, you know. He's a regular guy, so how would you possibly know who he is? But I want to tell you something, what's important to know. To you, he looks like a regular guy. But he clearly in himself knows that there's something wrong here. Because we're not talking about a guy, I want to tell you something, you know. When Rabbi Akiva became who he was, does that mean he had no potential? He had enormous potential, right? We're not talking about a guy who has like 103 IQ to start off with, you know. We're talking about a guy who had incredible spiritual potential. It was nowhere, right? What was missing was the actualization of that potential. So Rabbi Akiva had to say to himself, at some point in his life, what's going on here? I have a great head, I have a great memory, and I have tremendous spiritual proclivities, which means attractions. Why am I an Amoritz? He had to say that to himself. You know what I'm saying? If you think about that realistically, yeah, that's the type of person that Mashiach ben Yosef has to be. And therefore he himself probably suspects, but suspecting is one thing and being is another. The Mashiach ben Yosef, whoever the guy is, whoever he is, has two phases. There's Mashiach B'Kilkuloi, in his destructive, deformed phase. That's B'Kilkuloi. That's the inyan of the Yisurim that the Yalkut, the Medrash talks about, is the whole Yisurim. And like the Over said to him, which is amazing, you're greater than us, you see, because the Gzeris on you were terrible, severe, and bad. You see, then they tell that to the Mashiach ben Yosef. So therefore, that's Mashiach B'Kilkuloi. But the Mashiach now, obviously, when he gets the Yechidah, is called B'Tikunoi. He has a tikkun. You see, he's changed. So the Mashiach ben Yosef has to grow. He's got to go to rehab, right? What's his rehab? That's the question, right? That's fascinating what his rehab is. So his rehab is what? So the Pasuk says what is rehab. So in Yeshayahu, in Nun Beis, Pasuk Yud Gimel, it says over there that the Mashiach, that the nations of the world, in fact everybody, including Jews, are going to look at this guy and say, excuse me, you are Mashiach?
The reason why the Messiah, son of Joseph, is a warrior is because the Sephira of Yesod is the war zone. That's the place that the forces of evil and the forces of good are fighting for control over the way you use your Brit, the way you use your sexual organ. The Yesod of an individual is the most important bodily organ because it is upon the Yesod that the purity of the body depends. It is for that reason that Yesod is so important here, that it is the very channel of life force itself, and this reflects the inner struggle that every person has in this world. That's why this world is much like a war zone. The war zone is about, should I do the pleasurable thing that helps me in the moment?
We're located at the bottom of the body of the Messiah. We're fixing the bottom. That means that we are almost done. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, King David, etc. Yes, they were the most influential, but that's not what makes them great. What makes them great is that they have sacrificed their lives for this project of rectifying the world. They have spent their days fixing the Sefirot, the dimensions, the spiritual worlds that needed fixing ever since Adam's made the sin.
It looks like a corrupted person, okay? And he says people are going to look at this guy and say, you're Mashiach.
We have a drive to sin, right? There's so many different ways to be a Baal Gaiva, right? Or to, engage in promiscuous behavior, or to engage in behavior which clearly makes us feel as if we are God or supreme, and so on. Once we understand this, we can now understand Sheikh ben Yosef. Sheikh ben Yosef was very interesting. There's something else that he has, Mashiach ben Yosef. Because the Mashiach ben Yosef not only has the capacity to know, to learn ideas at the highest level, but what he also has the capacity is his ruchnius, his dvekus. Could you imagine the kedusha, the holiness of this Mashiach ben Yosef? Imagine, and I'll just let you imagine. Imagine a person who has unbelievable koyach, capacity for righteousness, for kedusha. I mean, just think of any of the great rebbes, right? And their capacity for spirituality, right? And then imagine all of a sudden they are blocked from even approaching a millimeter of that kedusha. So you're going to say to me, how in the world does that happen, right? Believe me, it can happen in man's, health and so on. People go through all kinds of trials and tribulations where they are forced in many ways, and I'll say the word, to sin, right? And I will show you what all this means. That all of a sudden, Mashiach ben Yosef is not only blocked with his capacity to be a tremendous goyin in learning and so on, because that's what he's supposed to do for the Jewish people, but he's blocked in his ability to be an incredible, not only tzaddik, but kodosh, holy person, which means dvekus, to be close to God. Yet there's something in him, you can look at it as a phenomenal Yetzer Hara,
This is a messianic thing. This is Moshiach in play. How can it be that he's not the most? He's leading up to Mashiach, so why isn't he refined? Well, what are we talking about? We're talking about the refinement of the fourth animal, and the fourth animal that we spoke about is not the most refined animal. But yet, that needs to have a tikkun, and that all fits to what we were saying earlier, that which is coarse and that which is low, while it's coarse, while it's low, aligns itself and steps completely onto the side of Kedusha.
Although it is technically true, Moshiach needs you, that the Messiah needs you. Even if a person interprets my words to mean that the Messiah lacks something, that's okay, because it's actually true. The Messiah does lack something, and he lacks something up until the point that we, as Bnei Israel, are able to bring him into completion. But the Messiah needs you? Oh yes, the Messiah needs you, and he even lacks. He lacks up until the point that we bring him into completion, meaning to reveal him in this world for all the nations, not the Messiah.
The most important idea, which is that according to several places in the Zohar, the Mashiach will be both a man and a woman. The Mashiach will be a couple. Mashiach will be a couple.
Nothing like this has come into Rome since Romulus and Remus. has conquered the people of Rome.
Historically, the word Messiah literally means the lizard's king in Demotic or Pharaonic.